Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Dollar Bin Bandits. I'm Mike Farah.
I'm Warren Phillips.
And boy, do we have a doozy of an interview for you today. It is an Orin-only episode, and you'll hear about our guest just a little bit later. But first, let's introduce our sponsor.
Our sponsor, of course, is TwoMorrows Publishing, the home of magazines such as Back Issue Magazine, Alter Ego, so many other wonderful publications and books. Please go to TWOMORROWS.com. Look around, get some subscriptions, get some books. You're going to love it. And our guest for this week is none other than Mr. Steve Rude. Steve is known for his incredible paintings, either for Nexus, Badger, so many other wonderful works for DC, Marvel, other publications. He is one of the best there ever was, and one of the best there ever will be. If comic fans know his art, they love his art. I remember talking to Joe Staten when we first started, and he was telling us that when Steve would send in the covers for Nexus, the whole office would gather around to open it up just to see what he had done. And I think that's a credit to Steve's work.
Yeah, Steve is an incredible draftsman, a wonderful painter, an interesting character. And besides Nexus, where I know him primarily from, he certainly has a lot of work in DC and Marvel as well. I'm talking the Incredible Hulk versus Superman, X-Men Children of the Atom, World's Finest, where I think in all cases he showcases both his illustration and painting. So without further ado, let's get to it. This is Steve Rude.
Steve, thank you so much for taking the time today.
You're welcome, Warren. Thank you for having me.
A first question, we usually ask of how people get into comics, but I'm more curious about how did you get into art? How did art first come into your life?
It finds you. It's an aptitude from an early age.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a compulsion. You know the art kids whenever you see them doodling all the time. That's how you tell, and then that develops into whatever comes at some point. Whether it's it starts in kindergarten usually. Sometimes there's late bloomers, but you never know. People are all also different.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it started in kindergarten.
Okay. Do you remember what your earliest influences were at the time?
In kindergarten?
Mm-hmm.
Animal books and dinosaurs.
And then did you feel that as you got older, you ever thought about doing a career in comics, or was that something that came along later on in life?
It came way later on, Warren.
Okay.
The whole comic book thing. I never thought I would have the skill. I had no interest in drawing realistic figures until later on in high school, and especially after I graduated from high school. And then I realized I wanted to do comics, and if I was going to do comics, I better learn how to draw something more than Charlie Brown and Snoopy.
So what were the steps you took to teach yourself how to do this, or were there other classes that you were able to take that could help you out?
Well, you get these questions all the time. How do you break in, all that kind of stuff. Well, to me, the answer is so simple, but it's not the kind of answer people want to hear. What would you do if you were the only person around and you had no one to give you advice? How would you go about doing what you wanted to do? Well, you'd find a way, because you have to find a way. My answer to that question is just one word: tenacity. You have to be willing to dig and dig and dig until you find something, anything. What did these old masters have back then? They sure didn't have how to draw books, did they?
Right.
And yet they were the best of the best. How do you figure that? Now there's hundreds of how to draw books. Are people any better for it? I don't know.
Right.
Seems to me they're not.
Yeah. Now, what you started doing, you met up with Mike Barron. What was the pitch for both of you guys to start up with Nexus? Did he pitch it to you, or was it just you guys came up with this thing together?
No, it was all Barron's idea.
Okay.
Barron was a few years older than I was. He was working at an insurance company, slowly dying on the vine. And I was still a student in tech school. And And that was when I met my first grade art teacher. I had already been to art school for 2 years. But you know how teachers are in schools. Either they're really, really good or they're really, really bad. Generally, you get a little bit of both. But I never had a really good teacher in that art school that I went to. These guys were, I don't know, failed artists, I guess you would call them.
Okay.
I'm really glad I went to that art school from the age 19 to 21. It was a 4-year college, but I dropped out after 2. Couldn't take it anymore. I got what I wanted. And I said, if these guys don't give me a scholarship, I'm out. Well, they didn't. They gave it to guys that were way better than me. So I left. And that's part of the way I answer your question about what do you do to get good? Well, if you're looking to get good at something, your ears and eyes are always open to everything around you that'll give you some kind of a grasp, an opportunity of some kind that'll teach you things. I mean, I used to go out sit on State Street in Madison with my sketchbook and just draw fire hydrants or buildings or cars, anything. People should rely more on their sound judgment, on their intuition than all the advice other people can give them, because for one thing, as you know, Warren, everyone gives a little bit different advice. But that advice is unique to them, not to the person they're necessarily giving it to. So I always leave a lot of room for the person you're giving the advice to. And this is why I give so few words of advice, things like tenacity. I mean, that's pretty open, isn't it? You know, kid, if you want this, you'll find a way.
Right.
And you'll grab anything and everything you can. You'll meet everyone and anyone that you can. You'll go anywhere you can to find somebody that maybe you'll click with eventually, and you'll start to learn the things at a much faster, higher rate than only because you found that right teacher. Because there's so many teachers that are so compromised and so bad. Some are outright stupid. Let's just call it what it is. The failed artist types that want to teach, I would never go into teaching like that, because if you have a life as an artist, why in the hell would you want to teach? I mean, devote yourself to yourself. And if you've got things to say about your life, devote it to yourself. And if people come to you and ask questions and want advice and all that stuff, besides saying, be tenacious, be open to giving them advice, but I'm not going to devote my life to teaching a bunch of kids that probably don't care.
Right.
If they do care, I'll help them out. And I have in the past.
Where do you think your tenacity came from?
Inborn.
Okay.
Viciously tenacious character thing that I personally have.
Right.
It was off the charts. I always thought of it as life and death.
Okay.
That's pretty severe, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, that's pushing it.
If I wasn't going to get what I wanted in life, it wasn't going to be a life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I thought about it. Everyone says that I think in black and white. There's no grays. Well, I guess if they say it, it must be true.
So when Mr. Barron pitches Nexus to you, what suddenly is your end goal for the book in your mind?
To get started.
Yeah.
To do anything to get started. When you're that age, it's kind of like you've got a constellation of a very small constellation. It hasn't grown into the universe yet, but you've got this constellation where you can pick a few stars at a time, and see if those stars start to twinkle after a while.
Mm-hmm.
And if you happen to grab one that starts to flare up a little bit, you get excited. Mm-hmm. But you'll take anything you can get. Me and Barron got lucky. but it was mostly Barian leading the charge. Like, for example, he was the one that cornered the two guys from this comic distribution place in Madison to take a chance on publishing. Now, I don't think these two guys are very brave. I think they were, I'm not sure why they really got into it. You have to be, they weren't like me. It was not life and death for them, believe me. But they thought they'd give it a shot. Maybe if they thought it would put them on the map in a more prestigious way, who knows? But I've since thought it over, and I think these guys were really, they didn't have what it took to hang in for the long run. And I kind of resent them for that.
Okay.
Well, we gave it a good shot. The editor, Rich Bruni, was very good. When we formed Capital Comics, well, we should have had it going for much longer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you have a weak link, Oren, what do you think happens?
Yeah.
You know, especially if they're the people that are publishing the thing and forking out the money for it.
Right.
But I was in fire. I was just, you know, I had a lot of ideas in my head. And one of them was I didn't want my covers to be black and white ink drawings.
Mm.
No, everyone does that. Why would I want to do that? I had huge aspirations to be like my illustrators. My illustrators painted pictures, and they were the best of the best. And I was just some kid trying to try things. You know, all the classes had oil paint, not watercolor, not opaque watercolor, or gouache, or acrylics. It was always oil paint. So I learned that was the thing you learned how to do from the beginning. So I'd be in class trying to paint. I remember the back cover for Nexus #2, where he's going like this with his hand blasting. That was done in class, in my oil painting class with Mr. Campen's class, and I thought it was pretty good at the time. You know, because you can't see the flaws if you're only limited by certain amounts of knowledge. You can't see them. It's later on that you see them as your knowledge grows. But it's a good thing we're kind of blind at the early stages, because otherwise we'd just be so frustrated we would never do anything. You know, people have this quote they use, which I really can't stand. It's like, you need to get 1,000 drawings out of your way before you're good. Well, I kind of can't stand that phrase. It sounds like a death sentence to me. So like every drawing you're going to do for 1,000 is going to be bad. Well, okay. That doesn't sound like fun. Have fun along the way. Every drawing should be just something you have that's something that you're doing that's fun. And every drawing is a little this and a little that. And sometimes you go backwards, and sometimes you don't go backwards. Sometimes you actually improve. So the journey is supposed to be fun. It's all about the journey, and they know that.
I'm curious because the cover for #1 is so iconic and beloved. What was step one for you in the process of creating that?
Well, Glacy did the first cover. You talk about the Capital books, right? Black and white books.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I conned Paul Glacy into doing that first cover.
Okay.
And you know, I had you talk about going to meet people that you really admire. Well, Glacy had come off Master of Kung Fu, and the guy is so unsung from those years. I can't believe it. I mean, what he had done in those pages is hard to describe. It's almost like it almost came to almost a superhuman kind of an apex with storytelling, and yet so few people ever talk about that book.
Yeah.
And it's been what, 40 years now since the 1970s when that book came out. And why that is, who knows? You can't figure people out.
Right.
To their detriment. I'm glad I'm smart enough to know how great those books were. That book, Master of Kung Fu, and all the Kirby books are still, to this day, the books that influenced me by far the farthest, the strongest of anything I've ever seen. And if I'm stuck in something or want inspiration, where do you think I go?
What is it about that art that captures you so much?
Have you seen Master of Kung Fu that Glacy did?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think it is?
I think it's the way he captures action and the way he captures, I think, the expressions is absolutely beautiful and incredible.
Go back and look at those, Warren. What you'll find is a sophistication of storytelling that's on a freakish level.
Okay.
It's so sophisticated and so innovative that it literally puts everyone who was working in the field in the Silver Age. It kind of puts them back to almost to the Stone Age.
Mm-hmm.
As good as all these guys are, I mean, and believe me, I got my heroes from that age too. But when you look at Glacy stuff, you see something that almost appears to move on the page.
Mm-hmm.
And the tricks he employed, Glacy is a way different kind of guy than you'd expect him to be. I was just thinking about this the other day. I visited him so many times, starting in the summer of 70. When the heck was this? I think it was 77 or 78, because I graduated in 75. And I was very quick to hitchhike from Wisconsin to Youngstown, Ohio, where he lived. So I met him. And, consequently, when I would want to break into comics, I would save up all my money and get on a train and listen to, a whole carload of brothers playing This Is Family for the next 5 hours. But eventually I would get to New York. I would arrive at Glacy's apartment in my stupid plaid pants. And I remember we were going out one night, and I was telling him about this scene from one of the early Master of Kung Fu's that really influenced me. So I got down on the pavement to show him the scene. And he thought I was crazy. But that's the kind of things that I do. And I recited the lines and everything. You'll know when I'm talking about a scene that affects me. but Glacy, he'll look at you like you're nuts. The guy is a genius, but he doesn't act like one. Mm-hmm. He acts like, yeah, no big deal. He'll say something like, well, I put my James Bond soundtrack on, and I really got into it, and it just comes. He gets. What do you mean my connection is unstable? I think this machine is unstable here. So you just can't figure these people out. I've met some artists that seem to be more befitting of office jobs doing, what is that stuff that they do? Accounting, and being an artist. They're so cold about this thing. I'm nothing like that. You know that I'm an artist. Because I'm so, I act like I'm one. I talk like I'm one. I practically gush out the emotion of the things I feel. Mm-hmm. So that's me. Not everyone's like that.
Could you imagine doing art and it just being a job, a 9-to-5 for you? The way, you describe some other folks where they just sort of put the work in, but it's just their job, and then they go home and do other stuff.
No. Right, especially right now in my 60s, I've never once thought of it as a job.
Right.
Especially now without deadlines, and ironically, even without deadlines, I tend to work even longer and harder than when I had them, because I'm having too much fun.
Right.
Too much fun.
What was the biggest lesson you learned from that first run with Nexus about the industry and about yourself?
Well, with First Comics, they put me under a lot of pressure. Once Capital folded because of those sissies, mm-hmm. We went over to First, and they just browbeat the hell out of you, and you had to get the work in on time. So I was under a lot of pressure to get it done, and I got it done. Mm-hmm. But it caused a couple, I guess, what you would call nervous breakdowns. What else did I call it? I had a name for it. Burnout. Just straight out burnout. Right. And then the editor would get on the phone. He was as emotional as I was as an editor, and basically scream at people. So he was a very high-strung guy that probably should have been in a straitjacket sooner than he was. Um, you know, these people are so strange. You know, a lot of guys, everyone in an office is so different. Some guys scream, some guys are very passive, very calm.
I want to jump back for a second because when you were talking about the fellows who were running first, you said they didn't have what it took to go all the way. What do you think it takes to be successful in comic books that they didn't have?
Well, you're probably referring to the Capital guys. Those are the
Capital, I'm
wimps
sorry, yeah.
that couldn't keep going. Yeah.
Yeah.
So was the question addressed to the Capital guys and not
Yeah.
the first guys?
Yeah, Capital. Yep, sorry.
What do they need to have to keep it going?
What do they need to have that personality-wise or business-wise that you felt was lacking? That's why, you know, it didn't go as far as it should have.
Oh, that's very simple. They just needed to want it more.
Yeah.
Instead of bailing out when things got a little tough.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple.
Okay.
Everyone goes through times like that. Some people fold right away. Some people will keep going no matter what. I mean, I've almost lost the house several times.
Right.
And it's because of my convictions about what I stand for in life.
Mm-hmm.
Not a smart way to go. But hey, some people are just a little crazy like that.
Going to Nexus, you were doing interiors as well as covers. What were your thoughts on doing interiors at the time?
Well, I was excited. I mean, my life is comics.
Mm-hmm.
Illustration is just something I wanted to be good enough at so that I could claim the title of being illustrator worthy. Because if you're an illustrator, you're top. You're the top. You're top notch. But comics is storytelling. And if you've got this weird kind of thing in your head where when you read comics and you have these great influences, and you sit down and you plan a page out, and you see these things come into life, how much more exciting can it get than that?
Right.
That's how I think about and it's still there. It's the intensity of the work is pretty overwhelming, but it's so exciting. It's incredibly exciting to do what I do.
What was going through your head the first time you saw your stuff published? You held the comic book in your hand and this is yours.
No, I thought it was pretty cool. Now, when I see the finished product, I kind of don't even, it doesn't even matter to me. I feel kind of bad about that.
Okay.
Unless the printing is good, if the cover's good and the interiors are good, I just kind of breathe a sigh of relief.
Okay.
But it's not as exciting as it used to be.
Okay.
To me, it's just a matter of making sure it's good enough so it can rest on my mantle and I'm not ashamed. I make so much about making sure that the printing is good.
Okay.
Because these printers, the printing that's done in comic books, God knows what they're thinking, but it's and they all know this because I've told them this 1,001 times, maybe 1,002. The printing is too damn dark in the books. A copy of the Nexus book that I just put out, that I made sure was printed well, is it readable? If it is, I succeeded, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Here's a cover of a recent book. Okay. It looks like a keyhole, doesn't it?
Very much so.
Yeah. Let me see if I can point something else out here. How light is this? How readable is that?
As I say, you can make out some images, but the rest is very murky and very muddy.
And these guys say these are not printed too dark.
Right.
What planet are we living on? Because when they tell me what planet we're living on, then I can probably target the problem a little easier. Because I don't think they're living on this planet here. So the answer, Oren, is to do self-publishing and do it your way. Get rid of the majors. People don't need them anymore. I understand that they want to work in their favorite characters, but what about the idea of working on your own character? Combining all the things you like me and Baron did with Nexus. and making it your own thing, having total control over it, never having some editor tell you something that you think is insane or something you totally disagree with, or making their political views known to you that you don't agree with. All these kind of things that can come into it.
Right.
If you did your own thing, you'd be free from that, wouldn't you?
100%.
So think about that, guys. I'm very much encouraging people to look at that alternative.
What advice would you give folks? Because I know there are so many self-published books coming out now because of things like Kickstarter and things like that. Folks who are, trying to start their own comic books, what kind of research should they do when it comes to finding a printer that will meet what they're hoping to get out of it?
I talked to somebody who's done that. It had good results.
Okay.
So it's a word of mouth kind of thing.
Okay. Why do you think there was such a change, or why do you think they have gone so darker in the coloring of the books now?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I see stupid things done every day by people. That's just another one of them. But that one has lasted going on probably 30 years now.
Right.
That's a long time to be dumb.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the big two, after or a little bit towards Nexus, you do go over to DC for a little while. Were they reaching out to you, or did you reach out to them?
I don't solicit work.
Gotcha.
I did a couple times in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I offered myself to them,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just a ridiculous hassle, and I don't need ridiculous hassles in my life.
Right.
Some of the conduct of these editors is absolutely atrocious. Personal conduct. I'd love to name a few names for you about this, but I happened to encounter a few of them at conventions. Some of the people that completely ignored my letters. I made it known how I felt. But there's no excuse for that. Zero.
Right.
If these guys are people you write to, and part of their job is to correspond with people that want to be part of their operation, and you ignore them, go to hell.
Right. Why
are you even in this business here? And if they would do that to me, imagine what they would do to newcomers.
Yeah. I find that unbelievable, because I think your history and your work stands so strongly, and it's so beloved by fans and so respected, I'd say, by fans in the industry, that I can't understand why they wouldn't take the time to just pick up the phone or write back a letter.
Well, you and me both. But the thing about me is I fight back.
Right.
I make it well known. The last thing I've learned that if you want changes in life, don't stay silent, because that's just aiding the people that already are so inclined to bad behavior to begin with. Don't let them get away with it. Tell them. And we've got internets now. Don't be afraid to make your thoughts known. And if it bothers these guys, well, they should be bothered.
I want to find out a little bit more, because what you said a moment ago, I think absolutely fascinates me, is the research you do, because your work is so intricate. And, I'd love to hear what's the steps, the process of research you take when coming up with a project you're working on, or a cover that you're working on.
Well, let's go to the interiors. Children of the Atom involved a lot of FBI stuff in the story. Well, I've read through my illustration books, mostly from the famous artist course books that Albert Dorn started back in the late 40s, that if you're serious about being an illustrator, you go to the source. So so knowing that the FBI building was over in Washington, D.C., or where is it? It's right across the lake from wherever. I can't think of it right now. It's so in my head, I can't even think of what it is.
Quantico?
But I'll if I come up with it, I'll mention. Yeah, Quantico, Virginia, I think is where the training grounds are.
Okay.
But I started off by writing the FBI for information. Second, I got in a plane and went to the offices of the FBI. I developed contacts and got a tour of the building. So I got to see this and I got to see that. On top of that, you do a lot of reading. You're responsible for the work that you turn in. And if you do a bad job or you do an incorrect job, you're going to lose a lot of validity with the people that know the stuff many times better than you do. So let's not embarrass ourselves here. So the research was insane. The hardest book I ever researched was World's Finest. And that was 3 issues of the hardest, longest duration of research I've ever gone through in my life. The next hardest book was Hulk versus Superman. You'll see some of the scenes that took place in a general store, an old country store. Well, that was on a trip up to Oregon where I found that store. So, and I knew exactly what I wanted because artists see what they want what they want in their heads. So I saw the perfect thing. I took shots of many stores from the exterior, from the outside. And then I went on the inside and said, you know what, if I take some pictures? And they said, sure. So we tend to cobble the things together to make one scene. You like a little bit of this, you like a little bit of that. And of course, you got to make room for a few word balloons, unfortunately. And so then once you gather all this stuff, all this research, then you've got to draw the damn thing. And in the case of Hulk versus Superman, I got no trouble with Marvel and that, but DC, of course, that are so harmless that they want to find a way to ruin the fun. So the lawyers come in and they look at, oh, well, Rude, you can't put this in here. This is a copyrighted thing here. Well, to these lawyers, everything on earth is a copyrighted thing. Everything. That little package of Planters peanuts. Well, Planters is a copyrighted name stuff. Ever see them drinking a can of Coke? You damn fool. In a movie or a TV show, or making reference to it in a book or anything. But for some reason, comics have this stick up their rear end about panicking, and looking at that as a red flag to why is that? What? And then they always come back with, well, we don't want our products being used by people that don't ask us permission or pay us money for whatever. Is that really kind of the spirit of cooperation you want with the world at large? So everything is about a lawsuit? Is that the only way you guys could think about this stuff? Was it always like that? Well, no, it's on and off, depending on who runs the business. At times when people just let this kind of stuff go, world carries on. No building explodes, nobody dies. And the fans benefit. The fans look at this stuff and get a good laugh. And I had a lot of laughs in the Hulk and Superman. They were all taken out. Here's something cool. This was trying to figure out Kirby's energy dot thing. See that up there? How that works?
The crackle?
Figured it out. Yeah, they call it the crackle.
Yeah.
This was done in colored inks.
Wow.
And I love experimenting with these things. It was so much fun to do that. Now that I see it backwards, I can see all the flaws in it. Typical.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about, because
yeah.
you brought up flaws. You remind a lot of my dad. He was a painter too, and he would do little things I wouldn't notice. But it would stick in his mind, and he kept, erasing or using the knife to scrape it off and then repaint it again and again and again. And I'd always say, I think, this looks fine to me. Are you the same way, that a little thing will catch you and you have to keep working on it?
If you mean an artist that doesn't get bothered by little things, you're dealing with somebody from a different planet.
Gotcha.
There's no such thing as an artist who doesn't go through that. I was copying some Barry Smith stuff here.
Oh.
So I call this panther with a monster head on top of it. Yeah.
I like that.
The mountain lion here was done by a wildlife expert illustrator named Paul Branson.
Okay.
And whenever you saw an animal drawing in the various magazines from the 40s and 50s, it was always, illustrated by Paul Branson, because they knew who to come to. But it was, I draw anything that I think is cool. I was experimenting here with how to get whites back in watercolor, scraping, like how do you get little hairs back?
Right.
So that was me screwing around with that. Let's see, is anything copyrighted here? I think this canteen right there from the 40s has got to be copyrighted. So we probably want to edit that out from the broadcast here. Blowhard. Somebody wanted me to do a blowhard painting for them, so I got out the blowhard books. Wow. And this is just pure fun. Look, there's a blowhard paw right there. I forget what they look like.
Right.
There's a Chinese fortune right here. Okay, you ready for this one here, Oren?
Sure.
The fortune. You will be successful through innovation and determination.
Works for me.
Pass it on to all the young guys and the old guys reading this right here. Watch this. This was a lot of fun. See, all these things are a lot of fun.
Yeah.
When I see little areas like this, I try to fill the whole page. Some of these dummies that do sketchbooks, they do one little doodle in the middle and they turn the page. What's the point, Jack? Well, there's Ram. There's Flowhard, Flowy.
Yeah.
There's a little Flowy down there. Practice.
How do you capture skin tone so well?
Oh, well, what did the fortune just say? Determination, blah, blah, right? Ears. Okay, this was an ear day right here. Forgot how to draw ears, so time to get out the ear books. Now imagine a whole book devoted to ears. I think there should be an ear book coming up there. I mean, everything. Okay, a big blowhard page.
Wow.
Begging blowhard. Okay.
And that's Superman and the Hulk with him?
Yeah, this is a paint that I did for some commission for some fan guy. That was a lot of fun. But if I have to draw, dogs or cats, I have to get out the blowhard reference. I have a whole section on those worthless cats and the blowhards. We call cats dicks, so they're dicks. There's blowhards and dicks right here. Can you see all that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a Chinese dick, and he's completely worthless. So.
Yeah, we have a cat too.
Yeah, I pity the fool. Okay, more dicks, more of those worthless animals. Absolutely worthless.
But you draw them nicely.
Yeah, well, you don't want to do bad animals, Oren. If you do bad animals, you're exposed as a fraud, and you need to go to prison for that. Here's my little setup down there, my watercolor setup.
Okay.
So if I have to draw these animals, you have to get the books out. You have to learn how to draw them all over again.
Right.
No excuses. Oh, this was fun.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Cool? Yeah, look at all the cool stuff in there.
Wow.
There's Tinkerbell looking at her thighs. She thinks she's too fat.
I really like the color on that.
Oh, why do you think I have so much fun doing this?
Yeah.
It's I think it should be illegal to have this much fun. Nobody should legally have this much fun without somebody coming along and saying you shouldn't do this. Arrest him. He's having too much fun. What's this right here? Oh, this is Zorn, Anders Zorn. He's a Swedish artist. All the good people know who he is. All the dummies don't. What do we have here? Oh, this is cool. Yeah, this is the journey through my sketchbook right here. I don't do these because I'm disciplined. I do them because they're fun. And it's a lot easier than working for a living, that's for sure.
You got the Cheshire Cat there too?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it is. This was a copy of some person's painting that I liked, and I copied it.
Okay.
I learned things from copying other artists. I mean, there's a whole world of things out there. This is from Robert Fawcett right here.
Okay.
Well, that's a trick. Using my hand to do backwards here. Robert, do you know Robert Fawcett?
No, sir, I don't.
No, well, nobody else does either. But these guys spent their whole lives in this field, and at the time, everyone knew them. But now, sadly, no one knows them.
Yeah.
That was Rockwell's greatest fear, that he'd be forgotten, because he watched the greatest illustrator in the country, Leyendecker. Leyendecker fade into obscurity, as they say. That scared the hell out of Norman. He was so afraid of him. And it didn't happen. Norman is the only guy the average person on the street knows as an illustrator. The only guy.
Yeah.
So if I exhibit my work, and when I tried this fine arts route, which was ridiculous, I never should have done that. The only comment people would make was, "It looks like a Rockwell." That's the only reference point they had.
Yeah.
Universally every time. Yeah, it does look like a Rockwell lady. That'll be $10,000. Do you want to buy it? Well, so it just goes on and on and on. It's just. Here's a trivia thing right here. I get really excited when I order stuff, a mail order stuff, right? Never thought I'd be doing it. Never. But this whole Amazon Prime thing, where you can get stuff delivered in the same day. I mean, that's insane. I don't know how they ever manage that. I bet you take 2,000 people, and one guy would raise their hand and say, "Yeah, I can make that work." But the rest of them, impossible, right?
Yeah.
I don't believe in impossible. I don't have those wedges in my head that say impossible or can't or no. I don't believe in those words, but I think they're creatively offensive.
Yeah.
And anyone who has those words in their brain is going to be stunted throughout their whole life. I mean, imagine people come into the studio and I tell them my dreams, right? Which is basically the Nexus animated cartoon show. And some of these guys come in that work in the business. And, well, Steve, let me tell you the reality of the business here. You really can't do whatever you're talking about can't be done. And I just look at these guys and give them. I don't use a megaphone, but the voice gets very loud at this point. And I tell them, "Who in the hell do you think you're talking to? And why are you even saying this stuff to me? Why do you want to deprive anybody, let alone me, of something you want to dream about to make a reality, to make the world a better place? You know why you're even saying that kind of stuff to somebody? It's kind of like a how dare you kind of a thing. But they're so brainwashed. And they're being told so many times by other people that they buy into that crap. Well, how far does that attitude, if you want to call it that, how far does that get them in life? Right. So when they come up against something in their life, because we all do, that they'd really like to do, they hear a no, they hear a can't, they hear an impossible. And whereas guys that don't believe in that nonsense just go forward, ignoring that crap, these other guys will just stop that in their tracks, and they'll never realize what could have been. Now, what a way to live your life, huh?
Do you think that mentality is what's made you so successful as an artist?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's no hold bars in my brain.
Right.
And the fact that I'm at this age now, and I feel more unfettered than ever.
Right.
That's kind of a magic. And the other gift that you have, if you think like this, like the way I'm thinking here, is every time you go to a show, which I do very seldomly, I just want to work, do my thing here. When I do go, you're going to get your share of people coming up. And generally they're young guys. They've heard by way of whatever that you might be somebody that they want to talk to about the same things everyone else asks when they want to break into the field. Well, the good thing is that they'll never hear anything negative from me. Only positive.
So here's a question for you. How did you deal with it working for Marvel, working for DC and other publishers where there are some parameters put on your imagination and what you want to create?
Well, the first thing to know is that they very much wanted to hire me in the first place.
Right.
And then they worked with me, and then they found out that it was difficult. So I think if you talk to some of the editors there, what they would say, we loved his work, but we hated working with Rude. So that kind of rep comes in. You hear that all the time in movies. He's a good actor, but he's very difficult on the set. But if you look at it if you look at it impartially, why would you want to start a book with somebody and schedule it before they even started the book? I have a very dominating personality, and I tend to take over in a lot of ways. But that's where I belong. The things I'm doing with Nexus on my own right now, that's where a guy like myself needs to be. I need to be free of the fetters that are imposed on me that I think are nonsense. And if you look at Nexus, it's the cleanest book on earth. It's all about heroic idealism. So I don't know if you read comics nowadays, but I think heroic idealism is probably an anachronism from 70 years ago. What superheroes I thought were supposed to be. I mean, I grew up on classic 60s Marvel, and that's what they taught me, what a hero is.
What if you had is Nexus your blueprint of what a hero should be or what a superhero should be?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
There's conflicts because there's conflicts in life. The writing that the things that me and Baron did in Nexus are meant to reflect real life. To a point. I don't believe in gore. I don't do gore. So that sense of, you remember the Lone Ranger TV show way back in the late, early 60s?
Jay Silverheels and stuff.
Yeah. When you watch that show, that's what I grew up on. That's what I believe in. And that's in my head. And that's what I am inside. That's what I am inside.
Right.
So when I do the work that I do, there's always a bit of that in there. The last book I did for DC that I really had a good time with was Birdman.
Okay.
The writer, I think his name was Phil Hester, turned in a tremendous script. He took, which was basically a pretty silly character from Hanna-Barbera in the 60s, and the script was just tremendous. He made the whole thing work. And believe me, if that was something that grew on trees, everyone would be doing it, but they don't. Yes, the coloring was too damn dark. The covers were way too dark. But the work that went into that, there's always so much work that goes into everything. You have to do your research. That's the illustrator's credo. Do your research. But that was a book that was a blast. I don't think I had any trouble with copyrighted material there because there was no chance to do that in there. I somehow avoided little pictures of Elvis or
Planters Peanuts.
Yeah, Planters Peanuts. Somehow I got away with that. But that book was so much fun. I just had look at the Birdman books, and you'll see how much fun came out of that. If you feel the sense of fun, then I scored.
Right.
Yeah, there's a really important quote that Stan Lee said a long time ago in one of his soapboxes, and the thrust of it was, comic books are supposed to be fun. What a concept, huh?
Right.
I mean, do what you want with these things. There's room for all this stuff. Don't censor things. Put them in a category, but don't let people do what they want, and then if people don't buy it, it gets shut down. If they do buy it, fine. But the way things are going nowadays, it's pretty crazy. But I can tell you right now that I'm so happy doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So anyway, the point is, if you read the books that I do, and you feel by the time you get done reading the book, you feel good inside. That's what it's all about.
Right.
You take away all the big college words and the big phrases of Shakespeare quoting and biblical quotes and stuff, and it just comes out as fun. That's it.
Do you think that's why Nexus keeps coming back and why fans keep coming back to it? I mean, it's gone through a few decades now, and it keeps coming back strong, and fans are still in love with it. Is because it's a comic book. It's fun. It's supposed to be exactly what you said it is. You think that's the connection fans have?
Well, the people that read the book tend to be, I'm going to say, a little smarter than the average fan. They tend to be sensitive people. They want things in life that the same things that I'm doing in my book. So that I'm giving them the same things that I would want if I was a reader, which I am, of the old stuff, of course. But they're very low numbers. We've never sold high numbers ever in this book. The only thing I've ever made money off in the royalties was World's Finest.
Okay.
And I think I made 60 grand off that. But that's it. When it comes to money, my bank account is pretty low when it comes to that stuff. But how can you explain that I'm the happiest guy in the world doing this with making so little money? I have a great house. We get by just fine. I don't know how we do, but we do. I have this huge studio. It's so cool. I have oil painting, pastel area, animation area, model couch, my comic book watercolor area right here. This is what somebody should have at this age. Chloe, do you agree, Carcass? He's chewing under a leg right now. Please. If this is what you have at this point in your life, and you're still having the time of your life, thumbs up.
Artistically, are you the best you've been right now?
Boy, that's a good question. I don't think about it in that way. I don't know why, but I never think in terms of that.
Okay.
And I don't know why. Here's how I would answer that, Oren. I would say that as long as I feel internally that I'm stuck for the right words here. I need to go back to college here and recite some Shakespeare. As long as I see internally, I have a yardstick, okay, a little thermometer that tells me exactly where I am and how I need to feel about it. As long as that thing is going off at just the right place, then I'm just fine. I never get complacent because I don't have that gene, that complacent gene. I never get smug. I have a very good self-awareness quotient, so I can't fool myself. That never happens. I don't allow that to happen. So there's that one half of it. There's that part of it. And so if you have that, and you know that what you're doing is reaching that satisfaction mark where you're having fun, and you know you're not slacking, and you're working to your standards of ability, that's how I would answer that. Whatever that really means, that's kind of like a bunch of things that you need to roll into one.
Right.
And if I was a better speaker, I would have maybe a singular word for it, but I don't. So let's get someone out there to answer that question a little better than I did.
I think the most admirable, there's so many admirable things about you, but from just our conversation we just had, is that your work ethic. You never rest on your laurels. You're always learning. You're always pushing. You're always expanding. It's amazing, and just wondering, what's the future hold for you? What do you want in the future? What's your vision for yourself going forward?
Um, you know how girls are always planning 6 months from now? I barely think about the next 5 minutes. Uh, Everything is on automatic and very instinctive and intuitive for me. I remember I was talking to Raj Kirby one day, and I asked her, "How does Jack know where to go?" And she said, "Well, I ask him that all the time, and all Jack says is, I just know." Other people would give you these like dissertations on that question, right? Jack just says, "I just know." I'd rather give the "I just know" answer to most people. I just know. The only great goal I have still existing in my life is the Nexus animated cartoon show, and I always knew it would go this way. Right. The only worry I had was I didn't want to be 70 when I started this thing, because I thought I'd be dead by then or something, But there seems to be finally some, what I would consider some real life progress going on with it.
Okay.
But there's two things I said to myself back in 1988 when I started this whole thing. And I had this dream in my head for doing the show. One was, even though I'm an atheist, I said this is up to a higher power than me. I knew it from the beginning. This is way more than I could ever dream up or handle. So there's some presence that's way bigger than me that's going to be as responsible for making this happen as I would. I had to be ready for it. I had to do all the work. But as far as getting the yes from somebody who has the billions of dollars to make this thing a reality, that was way beyond me. Yeah. So there's that. And then there was going through the process that I knew it was going to be like from the beginning. There was going to be 1,000 people that didn't get it. And so for the last 35 going on 40 years now, I've been with those I don't get it people. And at some point I was just gonna toss it in and say, well, I did all the work I needed to. I was completely true to myself. This work is never going to see itself on the screen, and I feel okay with that. Not being able to explain why I thought like that, but all this work was going to go for nothing. I didn't care. Right. Can't explain it, but I did. But things keep popping up in these weird, freaky kind of ways. Again, something that's way more than just me is at work here. Is conspiring to make this thing want to get out there somehow. It kind of reminds me of the Beatles being rejected like by 30 different record companies, because that's the way it works. On everyone goes through that crap. Mm-hmm. How many publishers rejected Harry Potter before it finally happened? Right. This is the story of all these things. You go through 1,000 bozos to get the one person with the slightest bit of insight that wants to take a chance on it. Right. And that was the person I was looking for. I never found that person. The people I'm with now, I don't consider exactly, Einsteins. But what they're offering me is a chance to run with it. They've kind of given me a lateral roll, not a bomb, not a pass that goes 50 yards. They're not giving me that. They're giving me just enough to make me run with it. So, but that's all you need to give Steve Rude. Yeah. Just give me a little, side, toss, and I'll take it from there. Because the craziness that runs my, what did that fortune cookie say? Determination and all that kind of stuff. That's
ingenuity.
Yeah, I think if you tried to measure that stuff in me, it would kind of scare some people. It doesn't scare me because I'm used to it, but yeah, it's not normal. But for someone like me, I have to have that to make something a reality. because giving up is something I do not understand.
Right.
And not only do I not understand it, I don't know why you would even think like that. Why would you want to give up on something that's so important that I know and I've known from the very beginning? This is important for the record here.
Mm-hmm.
If it got in the air, it would change the world for the better. Not a doubt in my mind. So while the years and decades have now passed with nothing to show for it, that part of my thinking has never changed. So when it does get in the air, if and when, watch the world change. And this is long before there's even a show yet. That's how assured I am.
I'm gonna say, when this gets on the air, is this the pinnacle of your career?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the only reason it's going to be the pinnacle in a certain aspect is because this is going to reach about 2,000 people at the most. A TV show will reach 200 million. And that's the only reason I say that.
Yeah.
But the show itself will be no better than what I'm doing on this page or Bristol board here that I have the time of my life with.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll lead to, you know how if a novelist becomes successful after 30 novels, and everyone wants to see what he did before that, and suddenly he's a millionaire because they buy his previous books. If that happens, I'd be very happy. I don't need it, but I'd be very satisfied if it did happen, because it just means that more people will get a chance to enjoy this stuff. And the more people that enjoy it, it would lead them to let's just say a vocation, if you want to use that word, that would inspire them, just like things inspired me and you and everyone else who went on to do something that they said that couldn't be done.
Right. I mean, that's a great point right there. So for fans who want to see what you're up to, or, you know, reach out in some way, shape, or form, what's the best way to do that? I know you have the fan page on Facebook.
It's all the usual ways, you know. The 21st century is filled with all these gimmicks now, and everyone knows how to use them except me. If I need to use them, I get my kids over here. They all know how to use them. There's no mystery to that.
Gotcha.
Even Floey knows how to use it, I think, better than I.
That's a smart dog right there.
Carcass, yeah. Long neck goose. He's still chewing on it. So I hope this went as you expected. Probably not, because I'm so weird that how could it, right?
This one absolutely fabulous.
Okay. I consider that a mild endorsement.
I just like I said before, your work ethic and the time and effort you take on your art, it reflects in your art. Because the first time I saw your art, my cousin brought over, I was young and he had a stack of Nexuses, and I'd never seen painted covers before, and it changed everything. Like I had no idea such things could have been created. So I thank you so much for your art and for all the work you put in, because it's awe-inspiring at times.
Well, honestly, Oren, if you had to distill everything, what the work that goes into these things should mean, you just said it right there. It made you happy, and it made your life better than if you had not seen them. Yeah, it really is that simple.
And we are back. Yes, Steve Rude, very honest guy, gives us his opinions, and we really appreciate that. I loved hearing about his process, because when you have someone who creates art that way, you want to know, how does it begin? How does it end? What is his everything in between? And he really opened up and talked about that with us. And we really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely a very unique perspective from Steve. You can hear and see that he certainly suffers no fools and has very much a unique attitude and approach to comics and the whole industry. So again, to Oren's point, appreciate the honesty. Love to hear some of those cool stories and his perspectives. But that's it for this one. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. Please go to dollarprintbandits.buzzsprout.com and support us. Yeah, click that support button. You'll be part of the Dollar Bin Boosters. You'll get things like early access to interviewees, so you can ask some questions, early access to merch as we get that online, maybe some bonus episodes, cool stuff. So become part of the Dollar Bin Boosters. We really appreciate it. And thank you for listening. Thank you for viewing. And we'll see you next time. Peace.